everyone. This is James Green with the Resilience Think Tank, and today I'm here with Rachael Fischer. Rachael, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, James.
So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Rachael Fischer, and I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager with iluminr, who's a software as a service that provides critical event management, mass communications, and proactive threat intelligence. I currently work fully remote, which is awesome. So I'm down in Melbourne, Australia. The majority of our team is headquartered up in Sydney. On the personal side of things, I am a massive coffee lover. I'm sure if you've heard anything of Melbourne, we have a huge cafe culture down here. We've also got incredible art, so hugely into anything arts related and generally traveling. So any opportunity that I can get to connect with others out and about in the world, personally or professionally, that's sort of where you'll find me.
That's fantastic. So you said you like to travel. Where's the favorite place that you've been so
I
far?
think my favorite place would have been Japan, purely because it was so different from Australia, and probably like one of the first major pieces of travel that I did. And I found that just so fascinating from a cultural perspective. Obviously, in Australia, we do have a very turbulent and interesting history over here. So understanding from a different culture that just has gone for hundreds and hundreds of years is so fascinating to be in. It's also a really good mix of what I love, which is food and culture, and the arts, as well as nature. So lots of temples were walked. I think I did at least 15,000 steps a day minimum, just getting by. So definitely, if you are looking to go over there, pack some good running shoes, but highly recommend it if you do get the opportunity.
That's fantastic. I love to travel myself. So tell us, how did you end up in the resilience profession?
Yeah, so I'm probably very similar to others, as in I fell into it. My background is primarily in, the corporate sector. I've worked in organizations in management consultancy, superannuation, employment relations, not-for-profit association world, which is supplied into the corporate sector. And that really, for me, built a love for not only people, but also systems. So when I was looking at, after the COVID period, conducting some study, I was thinking about, what do I really love about what I do in my job, and what are particular things that I potentially don't love, and would like to move away from. In working through that, I landed on customer success as the industry of my choice and the profession that I wanted to move into. I then applied to RMIT University to do a customer success postgraduate degree certificate with them. And that sort of prompted me to see what was around in the space. After speaking with iluminr and understanding, the resilience space and perspective, it linked in so well to my previous experience in employment relations, focusing on the care and capability of your people, your staff, whether that's your visitors and externals, contractors, as well as from the association, understanding what that community aspect and actually coordinating a really dispersed workforce or people. So understanding all of that, for me, iluminr really was that pink unicorn moment to say, hey, this is a perfect mix of systems, processes and procedures, and those guiding frameworks to support you, and the people and practical applications. So for me, I think that it would be very hard pressed to move out of a resilience space. It is something that is not only so rewarding from the type of work that you do, but the work that you can give back and the achievements that you can have in that space really are second to none to other industries. I think it'd be pretty hard to say now that I just want to go over and make sure that someone's selling the best accounting package software possible. It just doesn't really have the same punch to it.
It certainly has a lot of meaning. I love to hear everybody's journey and how they got to where they are in our profession. Speaking of journey, you wrote an amazing blog post last year, which is one of the reasons I reached out to you. So I would love if you could tell us a little bit about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and your journey with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder. It's a genetic disorder that is degenerative, so it will deteriorate over time. Within Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, there are 12 different subtypes. They do have some genomic sequencing tests that they can do to help identify these. One of those subtypes, which is the most common of the rare, is hypermobile. And what that means is all of your cell structures have too much movement in them, or more movement than the average person. My journey to understanding what is Ehlers-Danlos or Ehlers-Danlos, so interesting to understand, a whole new world that I didn't know anything about, something deep into chronic illness, into genetic disorders, and then also into what it is to live with a rare condition. In about 2019, I was out with some friends at a comedy club, and I stood up. And as I stood up, my entire shoulder dislocated out of nowhere. And for me, that was the real trigger point that actually led me to this whole journey. After months of rehabilitation in physio, seeing a multitude of different specialists to figure out what was going on, it was identified that I possibly had a connective tissue disorder, so something that was impacting everything from my skin and my organs through to my eyes, ligaments internally, everything that is impacted through Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was referred to a specialist who's a geneticist who was able to diagnose me in 2022. So I've only had a couple of years of my diagnosis to understand what's actually going on and learn everything that I need to know about it. But it is something that is really complex, and something that even if you are living with it, it's going to be different to someone else's experience living with it. I've also seen that in the risk and resilience space when we're looking at a spider graph of what are your areas of concern or what are your risks and what does that look like. So I think it's quite transferable when you are talking about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as to what those different areas of risk are for you as an individual.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When you were sharing with me about your journey, and that your first symptoms were in 2019, but because
Yeah.
it was so rare, it's not like you were diagnosed the next week. You're like, oh, and here it is, and off I'm running. It was 3 years later. So that's a long time to be meeting with different physicians and specialists and trying to determine. I'm sure you were told a million different theories and a million different possibilities. So, talk to us a little bit about, once you finally knew what was the specific diagnosis, did that help with your personal resilience and your ability to move forward, because now you have an answer? A lot of us are afraid of the unknown, or the bump in the night, the thing we can't quantify.
Absolutely. I think that's something that I've had to learn to be really comfortable with, is the discomfort of the unknown. I know going in to my appointment with my geneticist, my partner was saying, oh, how are you feeling? If they, come back and it's just another test that we've done and you don't know what this is, like, how is that going to sit? I remember saying to him that it's not what the name is. Sure, a name's helpful. Everyone loves a name, but it's knowing how to support these symptoms. So if someone has a name, for me to unlock that magic door to be able to get to someone who's going to be able to help me with these symptoms, you could call it, pink hair, whatever. It wouldn't really matter, as long as it is something that I'm going to be able to, access some care from. So for me, in having that diagnosis, that really unlocked an absolute whirlwind of activities. I've got about 12 specialists on my care team, so it's a pretty involved process to go through that, going through a lot of, physical therapy and rehabilitation. I spent 4 months on crutches late last year in 2013, purely from walking up a few flights of stairs, which actually ended up, tearing a number of ligaments in my hip, which has been really challenging. So for me, having that diagnosis was also really reassuring to say, hey, you're not crazy. Walking up a few flights of stairs shouldn't destroy you like that, but it does, and this is why. Really provides a lot of comfort there.
Yeah, and I think for me too, limited interactions with you, your positivity are a huge part of your resilient journey and your resilient story.
Absolutely. I think that that's something that we learnt a lot in pain management. So I have a pain specialist who I go and see when there are a number of different things that are going on. And one of the things that they do teach you is the power of the mind and what that will do with your symptoms and how you can control them and how you can engage with them. And I think that's something that I try to bring with every aspect of my being, which is, if you know, the more information you know, the better you're going to be able to prepare yourself. The better prepared you are, the more resilient you're going to feel. The more resilient you're going to feel, the better the outcome is likely going to be. So I think for me, talking to people about, you know, all of these medical procedures and tests and really challenging and painful, difficult times, it's really important to remember that I live in a country where I can get the care that I need. I live in a country where I'm not financially destroyed by having this illness. I have an incredible workplace who's super flexible and supportive. I live in 2024 where we have internet and I can work from the safety of my own home. All of these things that I think that are sitting in my corner and are really important to place gratitude on, not only for you know, everyone else's benefit, but for your own, so that you are building that, I guess, positivity within yourself.
Yeah, that personal gratitude. I'm glad you said that. It's such a key driver for happiness and success. I'd love to hear from you. How do you view the resilience profession from where you sit and where you're at and your place in it?
I think from the resilience profession's perspective, we're seeing a lot of changes. We've gone
Mhm.
away from a lot of physical people safety aspects and more into a cyber world. We all know the world changed in 2020, and I think we're still seeing a lot of the after effects of those experiences, whether that's having you know, a workforce that's spread out, if it's, you know, expanding into different kinds of businesses, it's having different people involved with these different situations, or purely having access to a better understanding of technology. I know, for example, artificial intelligence is something that is a huge concern in that space. So for me, where I see resilience going is something that is actually responsible or emulated by every single person within an organization. I think that gone are the days of saying you have a resilience manager or you have a resilience professional, and they're always going to rock up with their backpack of, you know, diffusing options that they can always save the day with. But unfortunately, we know that that simply isn't the case anymore. It's not going to be something that will typically happen at one location where everyone who needs to be able to communicate or engage with those activities is also located. From my perspective, I also see artificial intelligence being leveraged a lot more in the resilience space when it comes to things like scenario development, testing of processes and procedures, or simply simulating activities. We know that you can't think up every single you know, potential situation that may go wrong. You can certainly do your best at being Chicken Little, but you're not always going to get it right. So what we need to do is we need to really be focusing on our processes, procedures, and standard activities that we would need to do to guide us through, no matter what that disruption is. So focusing more on the core activities rather than a disruption event and its event type.
You mentioned AI, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you see as the future of resilience?
So with AI for the future of resilience, I think that we're going to see more challenges in cybersecurity space. We are having AI deepfake situations where someone's voice or someone's imagery or likeness is being replicated in an unauthorized fashion. It is still pretty immature at the moment, but it is, you know, getting better and better the more data that we do feed it, and it does learn. I think the future profession with artificial intelligence, I hope to see the industry as a whole does leverage that capability. I think that in the risk and resilience space, we can be a little bit conservative on what we want to engage with, and there's a little bit of a fear of the unknown over there. So probably my message to anyone who may be listening today would be, don't fear artificial intelligence. It is a tool that is going to be used, and if you choose not to use it, you're losing out on the game because everyone else is using it. So making sure that you are using it in a way that's most beneficial to you and your organization, whether that's having an additional team member to think up these scenarios, whether it's to convert some particular content into different formats, or actually flesh out those individual activities that you're completing.
Absolutely. I like that because it seems like in my lifetime or in everyone's lifetime, every time there's a new technology introduced, people are initially afraid of it, whether it's the internet or email or Netflix, or it doesn't matter if it's a consumer based or business based. People are always scared of it. You mentioned earlier, I want to go back really quick, just as an aside about not being able to have a rucksack with everything in it you need. If you and I are ever at a conference together, trust me, I have every snack possible in my rucksack from years of being stuck in airports for tens of hours on end. I have enough food and entertainment for weeks if we ever
Oh,
get
I love
locked
it.
in an airport, just to let you know.
I've
So
always got a second phone, so we've got us covered.
my wife is always like, do you really need to bring all those snacks? I'm like, do you remember that one time I slept in the airport on the floor and I was fine? But anyways, so a
Oh, I
good
love
thing
it.
to know, it's people in our profession, we're very resilient and it comes in handy when we travel. Absolutely.
Hugely.
So
Hugely.
if people want to connect with you, Rachel, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so Rachael Fischer on LinkedIn. As James mentioned, do have quite a few blog posts on there and contribute articles in the risk resilience and customer success space. Or you can email me, rachel.fisher@iluminr.io. I'm always on email and checking those. So if you do want to flick anything through, more than happy to connect and discuss further. Since sharing my story online with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and the resilience profession more broadly, I've started to create a pretty great community that I'm connecting in with. So if anyone does want to reach out and have those kinds of conversations, more than open to it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend to everyone to read your blog posts on LinkedIn. You're very insightful and transparent. And we appreciate that. Rachel, I want to thank you for your time today. And for our audience, if you like this interview, you can find all of our content on our website, resiliencethinktank.com.